Today we'll look at the process of creation itself and see if there's any interesting difference. In Chinese mythology, the creation of the world has always been anguish and one. For the Han people, it was recorded in Zhuangzi Ying Di Wang that before the world came into being, there had been Hundun, who was the god of the central land. Hundun was friendly to his two friends, Shu, the god of the South Sea, and Hu, the god of the North Sea. Having been treated by Hundun very well, the two gods planned to pay a debt of gratitude to him by helping him obtain his 7 senses by chiseling orifices in him. 1 orifice a day with a sense opening. Hundun had come to obtain all 7 senses by 7 days, but was found dead from the massive trauma. However, his death contributed to the birth of the world. Thus, Chinese tend to believe that the world came out of labors, which is necessarily a painstaking process. Another age hero, Pangu, who was claimed to have created the world by his own death. The forests, mountains, rivers, and seas all came out of his hair, skin, flesh, and blood, and the sun, the moon, the wind, and the cloud from his bone and blood. Interestingly, in the creation mythology of other Chinese ethnic minorities, we find the same agonized creation process. Li people's myth depicts a giant god who created the valleys and rivers by kicking down mountains with all the strength. And it was his sweat that poured into the valley and ran like roaring rivers. In Laku people's myth, it was god Esha who created the heaven and earth. Finding the heaven too weak without support, Esha made a skeleton to support the heaven with his own bones of hand and foot. Here we see the Chinese creation mythology tend to view the creation as an excruciating process with lots of gallant and praiseworthy self-sacrifice. There's no such thing as romantic innovation, but trading of the god's own sweat, blood, flesh, and bone for a world of new life. New world of variety of creators come out of the death of the Creator. Now let's take a look at how the creation goes in the Greek mythology. It is said in the Greek creation mythology that in the beginning there was an empty darkness, the void, and there was nothing in the void but Nyx, the black-winged bird. The bird laid a golden egg, and ages later, life came out of the egg, which is Eros, the god of love. One half of the egg shell rose up and became the sky, and the other half became the earth. Eros gave the sky the name Uranus and the earth Gaia, and she made them fall in love. The following stories are about the many children and grandchildren Uranus and Gaia had and the fighting between the fathers and the sons. Eventually, the younger generation won and Zeus became the new leader. So, how were the creatures in the world created? It is said that Zeus summoned his 2 sons, Prometheus and Epimetheus, to create men and animals. So we don't see any details if this creation process is difficult or easy. And how did the world become flourished? Apparently, the new comes from the fusion between the old ones. The heaven came out of the fusion of the heaven, mountain, and sea. The earth combined with the heaven, and thus we had the Titans. From the Titans, we have the other gods and the human world. Everything, including the darkness, the dawn, and the four seasons, has come from a result of certain wedding. So, in general, in Chinese mythology, the world and the life in it did not come easily. There is, in most cases, a sacrifice of a greater being that results in the birth of the mortal world. It is a trade of the life of superior being to the life of many inferior beings. Obviously, Chinese identifies themselves with the inferior and submissive beings. Therefore, in Chinese culture, there has been the pervasive affection and gratefulness to the creation gods for the hardships and sacrifices they had made to create the world. Whereas, we find more reverence in Greek mythology. The gods in Greek mythology are not treated in the Western world as ancestors, and naturally, there is a lack of affection identification between Western civilization and their gods. Time to go through our big points. Questions? 1. Describe briefly how the prehistory gods made the world. In Chinese mythology, we see examples in Han people or other ethnic minorities' tales that there is usually a god existing before the world and made the world out of his own body, his own flesh and bones. Chinese sees the world of new life based on the self-sacrifice of the supreme and benevolent God. Whereas, in Greek mythology, there are not many words to describe the world creation process. We understand that the world, under the magic power of the great gods, comes into being not in a very difficult way. 2. How does a different creation process influence their attitudes towards the gods who made the world? Chinese have tremendous gratitude towards the gods who made the human world and gave them life, because they believe the world is built on the death of these immortals. For Western civilization, there is very little identification with the ancient mythological figures as someone to be grateful to. Part of the reason may be the too casual and seemingly easy process of creation.